The gavel sounded like a clap of thunder. "Order in the court," the judge yelled, his voice ringing off the gleaming wooden walls. Order was the last thing in that room. However, the courtroom teemed with energy, vibrating like an impending storm. Cameras snapped, reporters hunched intently over notepads, and onlookers leaned to one another and whispered with expectant, wide eyes. The Browns, once the face of love, unity, and faith, now sat broken, separated, and hardly recognizable as the family the world once believed. They knew. Seated at the defense table was Kody Brown, the man who once held himself like royalty, but no crown was visible today. Sweat beaded on his forehead, betraying the serene smile he put on for the cameras. His jaw was clenched in a tight line, muscles jerking as if each statement made against him hurt more than a blade. His golden ringlets, that were once the image of his charm, lay lifeless and disheveled, indicative of the bedlam that engulfed his life. To his side was Robin, the final wife, still hanging on to him, her hands shaking as she clutched at his arm like a drowning woman clutching at flotsam. Her face was white, lips compressed into a thin line, eyes flashing miserably around the room as if searching for an exit. She attempted to soothe him with a whisper, but Kody shook her off with a flicker of annoyance. Even now he despised appearing weak. In rows around the courtroom, side by side but a universe away from the man they once loved, sat Christine, Janelle, and Meri. Theirs had been a life of years of jealousy, competition, and heartbreak, but today, this moment, they stood together. Their eyes blazed with something more intense than anger. It was the gaze of women betrayed too many times, women who had finally learned to speak. Christine sat in the center, shoulders braced, chin set in defiance. Her hands were balled into fists on her lap, but her gaze never wavered from Kody. This was no longer fear. This was battle. To her right, Janelle's face was firm, serene, and unyielding. But behind the glasses, her eyes were keen, alert, calculating. She gripped a folder full of papers to her chest like armor. It wasn't paper, it was proof. Proof that might destroy the man across from her. And Meri, the first wife, sat on the left. She seemed weak, but oddly resilient, her lips shaking as if she were on the verge of tears, but wouldn't give him that pleasure. She had been Kody's shadow for decades, the woman whom he had pledged forever to in the past, but had left emotionally long before their marriage ended. Now, finally, she wasn't standing in the shadows, she was standing in the light, and her silence screamed louder than any woman ever could. The room was charged with tension, thick enough to strangle on. Everyone here knew they weren't here for just another day in court. This wasn't a matter of property boundaries or disputes over silly things. This was an empire crumbling, a public downfall of a man who had made his name on trust, on unity, on family, and accused of destroying it all with lies, betrayal, and greed. The judge, a stern man with steel-gray hair and an unyielding gaze, leaned forward in the bench. His eyes swept the room, landing on Kody, then the wives, then back again. He tapped the gavel again, the hard sound quieting the whispers. "This court is here," he declared, his voice firm but carrying the weight of authority, to decide if Mr. Kody Brown did knowingly exploit family funds and violate the trust of his wives. He paused, letting the words hang, heavy and damning. "Let's proceed." The phrases struck like a hammer. Cameras flashed once more, taking in each flash of emotion, each jump of muscle. Reporters wrote furiously, pens knocking away, aware that the news would be atop the headlines. Sister Wives Court Scandal. Kody Brown on trial. The man who had once championed love and devotion was now charged with fraud, betrayal, and conspiracy. But the accusations weren't mere hollow words. They reflected years of suffering, years of abnegation, years of women laying down their lives for a man who, to them, gave nothing in return. Christine shifted in her seat, her hands trembling as she clutched the edges of her chair. She remembered the countless nights she had gone without, the times she had begged for help to pay bills while Kody assured her, "We're broke, Christine. We're struggling like everyone else." And yet, here they were about to prove that while she struggled to keep the lights on, Kody was secretly moving money where no one could touch it. Janelle pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose, eyes focused on the pile of files before her. She had always been the pragmatic one, the one who balanced the accounts, who attempted to see through Kody's schemes and failed business opportunities. But this was different. This was about lying. She had followed every dollar, every withdrawal, every unexplained transfer. She knew what she had, and she knew what it spelled. And Meri, her thoughts were reeling with recollections of broken promises and lost years. She had remained faithful longer than anyone, holding on to the hope that perhaps one day he would come back to her, that the man she had loved would lay eyes on her once more. But no, she had seen him lavish all on Robin, leaving her with nothing, nothing but the acrid sting of betrayal. The crowd changed, the murmurs increasing once more. They all wanted to know how Kody would react. Would he lie to their faces? Would he blow up? Or would he finally break under the weight of reality? Kody leaned back in his chair, his jaw clenched, lips sealed into a thin smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He glanced around the room like a cornered predator, scanning every face, every movement. He despised this. He despised being trapped, despised being judged by people he once ruled. He growled something at Robin under his breath, too low for the microphones to pick up. She nodded hastily, eyes welling up with fear, but her hold on his arm tightened even further. The judge's eyes flashed to Kody once more. "Brown," he said sternly, "you are charged with fraud, betrayal, and conspiracy. You have the right to defend yourself. But let me be clear. This court will uncover the truth." The words struck harder than any blow. Betrayal, conspiracy, fraud, the gravity of them poured through the room like smoke, choking, unavoidable. Kody adjusted his position, stiffening his back, pushing that insincere grin back into place. He wanted to present himself as composed, unmoved, but the perspiration tracing its way down the side of his face betrayed him. He was already falling apart. The air thickened, the quiet stretched. Each and every individual in that courtroom knew something huge was going to be revealed. Something that would rip away the final shreds of the picture Kody had fought so hard to guard. And in that quiet, somewhere between the racing hearts and snapping cameras, the truth started breathing, waiting for the moment to strike. The judge put on his glasses and cleared his throat. The prosecution can call its first witness. All eyes in the courtroom focused on Kody Brown. She stood up slowly, as if the burden of 2 decades rested on her shoulders. Her movements were slow, deliberate, but her hands shook when she gripped the railing of the witness stand. The bailiff administered the oath, and Kody sat up straight, her face white but determined. She had been portrayed for years as the emotional one, the wife who couldn't cut it under the stress of polygamy. But today her voice would hold more weight than Kody could ever have envisioned. Kody's attorney rose. "Mrs. Brown, can you explain to the court why you have appeared today?" Kody caught her breath, glancing at Kody. Their eyes met for the briefest moment, hers brimming with pain, his with clinically contained anger. She glanced away hastily, her jaws clenching. "I'm here," she started, her voice shaking, "because I trusted that man with all I was. My childhood, my kids, my heart. I believed in us. I believed in him." Her fingers knotted together in her lap, but the tone of her voice hardened. "But what I learned destroyed it all." The courtroom leaned forward. Even the journalists stopped writing, waiting. Kody took one of the folders off the stand and opened it with trembling hands. She raised a printout of a bank slip. "This is a transfer, one of many. While we were fighting to pay bills, while I was stressing about whether our children would eat, Kody was transferring money into accounts I didn't even know we had." Gasps circulated through the room. Kody's voice broke. "And it wasn't about money. It was the lies. I would ask him and he'd say we didn't have any money. He'd say I'd have to cut back more. And I did. I gave up all of my things. And the whole time he was creating a second life behind our backs." Kody pounded his fist on the table. "That is not true," he shouted. Robin grasped his arm, whispering to him to be quiet, but his voice rang out in the room. The judge looked at him angrily. "Mr. Brown, calm down." Kody swallowed hard, struggling not to cry. For years I believed I was the issue. I believed if I worked harder, loved more, sacrificed more, things would improve. But I wasn't the issue. He was. He betrayed us all. Her words lingered like smoke. The anguish in her voice could not be denied, but neither could the strength. For the first time, Christine wasn't a begging wife. She was a woman calling for justice. The judge nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Brown. You may step down." Christine's legs shook as she sat back down, but her chin remained high. Janelle put out her hand and squeezed hers. They weren't competitors today. They were on the same side. "Call your next witness," the judge told her. This time it was Janelle Brown who rose. While Christine had shaken with fear, Janelle did not. She walked confidently, folder of papers clutched neatly at her side. If Christine had opened with feeling, Janelle was going to hit with hard, unyielding facts. After being sworn in, she pushed her glasses up onto the bridge of her nose and placed the folder on the podium. "I've handled the family finances for years," she declared flatly. "And what I found? It's irrefutable." She unfurled the folder and started placing documents on the stand. Bank statements, receipts, deeds to property. Each one made a soft thudding sound as it was placed, sounding like nails in a coffin. "These are payments made by Kody Brown, the past 5 years," she said calmly. "He said we were broke. He said we couldn't afford the other wives' houses, but he had enough money to invest in Robin's house, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And more than that, he transferred funds into private accounts with names we didn't know." The crowd grumbled. The reporter's pen skittered across paper. Janelle touched a document with her finger. "This one transfer in itself," she went on, "could have paid all of the family's medical expenses for a year. Instead, he concealed it. And when I called him on it, he fobbed me off, said that I didn't see the bigger picture." She spun, her gaze searing into Kody's. "No, Kody. I got it perfectly. You weren't defending us. You were defending yourself." Kody's face turned red with anger. He spoke to his attorney, but the microphones overheard his words. "She's always been against me. She never obeyed my orders." The judge's eyebrow went up. "Mr. Brown, you were warned." Janelle raised her chin. "This is not about respect. It's about the truth. And the truth is, he used us all." The judge nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Brown." Janelle shut her folder, returned to her seat and sat next to Christine. The two women shared a look of camaraderie, a look Kody had never seen before. At last, the judge called the third witness. "Meri Brown, please come forward." Meri stood up slowly, reluctantly. She was fragile, her gait heavy, but her eyes had something in them that hadn't been there previously. A flame that had been repressed for years was raging now. When she was sworn in, Meri white-knuckled the stand's edge. Her voice began soft. "I was the first wife. I gave him my heart when we were young, when we were aspiring to have a family. I stood by him when nobody else would. I believed in him more than I believed in myself." Her voice broke, but she continued. "But years went by, and he stopped visiting me. He abandoned me in all the ways that counted. Except for law. He said I was nothing. And yet I remained. I remained because I believed he cared, even minimally." She stopped, her eyes brimming with tears. "But then I learned the truth. While I sat waiting alone, hoping he would return to me, he was transferring money, planning, constructing a life with another. I wasn't his wife. I was his cover story." The words cut deeper than any letter, any bank statement. They were raw and painful and human. Meri's voice trembled with rage now. "He didn't just betray us. He betrayed what we fought for. Everything he said he believed in. He betrayed me." The courtroom fell silent. Even the reporters ceased writing. The gravity of her words was too much. The judge leaned forward. "Thank you, Mrs. Brown. You may sit down." As Meri sat back down, she brushed a tear away from her cheek. But her back was straighter now, her head higher. For the first time in years, she looked free. The judge addressed Kody. His voice was crisp, authoritative. "Mr. Brown, you've heard what your wives have to say. These are serious charges. What do you have to say for yourself?" Kody leapt to his feet, his face ablaze with rage. "It's a witch hunt," he bellowed. "These women left me, and now they're seeking revenge. I worked day and night to hold this family together. I gave everything for them. And this is their thanks. His voice was cracking, hysterical and desperate. He banged his hand on the table once more. I am the victim here. But the courtroom wasn't persuaded. The wives sat, their faces serene but unyielding. The judge frowned. For the first time, the portrait of Kody Brown, husband, father, patriarch, started to disintegrate before the world's eyes. And the anticipation only increased. The courtroom was buzzing. Christine's emotional testimony, Janelle's cold facts, and Meri's raw pain had cracked open the perfect family image that Kody Brown had tried to protect for years. The whispers grew louder, echoing against the walls. Reporters leaned forward, their pens flying across notepads. Cameras clicked with every twitch of Kody's face. The judge cleared his throat, his deep voice ringing above the din. Mr. Brown, it is your turn to react to these witness statements. You are free to take the witness stand, if you so choose. Kody leapt to his feet before his attorney could catch him. His chair shrieked back against the waxed floor, the noise jarring and harsh, his face red with color, sweat glistening on his brow, his golden curls plastered to his temples. He strode to the stand like a warrior marching to battle. He took his seat, folded his arms, and leaned back as if challenging anyone to oppose him. His attorney murmured, "Kody, let me handle this." But Kody dismissed him. "No, I'll answer for myself." The judge arched an eyebrow. "Very well, Mr. Brown. You are sworn to tell the truth." Kody leaned in, his hands at the edge of the stand, his tone biting and furious. "This is all lies. Every word they've spoken today is distorted. These women," he pointed at Christine, Janelle, and Meri, "they left me. They abandoned me. And now they want to destroy me." Christine's face set, but she didn't avert her eyes. Janelle just shook her head. Meri fought tears, but held her chin high. Kody's voice grew louder. "They make me out to be some sort of villain, but I was the one who worked day and night to hold this family together. Do you have any idea what it's like to provide for 4 wives and 18 children? Do you have any idea the pressure I was under?" The judge interrupted calmly. "Mr. Brown, this isn't about pressure. This is about fraud. Address the evidence." Kody's jaw tightened. "The evidence doesn't mean anything. Those transfers, those papers, they don't paint the whole picture. I shuffled money around, yes, but it was for the family. For all of us." Christine wanted some freedom. Janelle believed she was smarter than me. "Meri?" His voice broke, sarcasm tinging his words. "Meri never forgave me for loving Robin. That's what this is all about. Revenge." The courtroom gasped. Meri's lips trembled, but she stayed silent. Kody leaned back, spreading his arms wide, as if daring anyone to contradict him. "They wanted out, and now they want to drag me down with them. They can't stand to see me and Robin happy. That's the truth." Robin shrunk back in her chair, her face pale, eyes frantically darting about. She grabbed for a tissue, wiping at her tears. For the first time, she wasn't gazing at Kody like her savior. She was gazing at him like she didn't know the man on the stand. The prosecutor moved forward, his tone icy. "Mr. Brown, if all this was for the family, then why do the records indicate private accounts in names other than your wives or your children? Why were money transferred into investments no one else had a clue about?" Kody's expression hardened. He glanced at his lawyer, then at the prosecutor. "Those accounts were business propositions, prospects for the family. If I'd mentioned them to the wives, they would have freaked, closed it down. I was sparing them from themselves." Christine cracked a harsh laugh in her chair. "Sparing us? You were stealing from us." The judge slammed the gavel. "Order in the court." The prosecutor continued. "And how about the accounts that were co-signed? The ones in Robin Brown's name?" Everyone looked at Robin. She stiffened. Her breath stopped in her throat. Her hands clutched the tissue in her lap, pulling it apart into little scraps. Kody's head jerked around to face her. His voice plunged low, frightened. "Don't say a word, Robin. Don't you dare." But the quiet was screaming. The courtroom was filled with murmurs. The prosecutor took a step forward. "So, Mr. Brown, you're saying the accounts did exist. You're saying the money was kept hidden. And yet, you say it was all in the name of the family. Explain to me then, why the other wives were not told." Kody's anger burned. He pounded his fist on the railing of the stand, shouting, "Because they don't get it. They never did. I created everything. The houses, the show, the revenue, it was all me. Without me, they have nothing." His statement hung in the air like venom. Christine nodded her head, speaking softly, just loud enough for the microphones to pick up. "We already have nothing because of you." The courtroom became quiet. The judge's face was pressed forward, his voice slicing through the air. "Mr. Brown, arrogance will not cover up fraud. These papers indicate conscious deception. Do you deny it?" Kody gasped for air. He scanned the courtroom for any sign of support. His lawyer covered his face in his hands. The wives glared back at him with cold determination. Even Robin shunned his eye contact, looking down at the torn tissue in her lap. And at last, Kody's voice went low, a mere whisper. "You don't understand. I had no choice." The prosecutor's gaze grew hard. "No choice, Mr. Brown. Or no control." The words struck like a blow. Kody winced, as if punched. The crowd burst into whispers. "He's guilty. He's cracking. No control." The words whirled around the courtroom like vultures over carrion. Kody's mask was slipping. His voice became frantic, desperate. "I did it for us, for Robin and me, for the future. The rest of them, they never believed in me. They always questioned me." He turned to Robin, begging now. "Tell them, Robin. Tell them I did it for us." Robin's lips opened, but no sound issued from them. Her hands trembled wildly. The silence was oppressive. The gavel tapped again, and the judge's eyes narrowed. "That's enough. Mr. Brown, your excuses and rage just prove how serious these accusations are. You are not a special case. The truth will be revealed." Kody's breathing grew more rapid. His eyes scanned frantically. He was trapped, the walls closing in on him, and all of them in the room knew it. And in that instant, the great patriarch of the Brown family no longer seemed a leader, but a man who might break down. The tension in the room was strangling. Something more sinister was simmering beneath the surface, ready to ignite. The quiet within the courtroom was palpable. Kody Brown sat upon the stand, chest pumping, his eyes rolling wildly like a caged beast. Each statement that he had made, each denial, each rationalization, had merely bound him further into the net of his own deceit. Once the self-assured matriarch of the Sister Wives clan no longer appeared invincible. He appeared dangerous. The gavel came down from the judge. "Order in the court." The echo shook the room, but the order never arrived. Because in that moment, Kody snapped. He pushed himself up from the stand, his chair crashing over backward. His lawyer attempted to catch his arm, whispering for him to sit, but Kody shook him off fiercely. His golden curls, once his badge of charisma, now lay wild and sweaty on his forehead. His eyes blazed with fury and desperation. "This is a setup," Kody bellowed, his voice shattering the air like thunder. He shook an angry finger at Christine, Janelle, and Meri. "You all conspired together from the start. You wanted to embarrass me, ruin me, steal all I've accomplished. You're nothing without me." Gasps in the courtroom. Christine's face contorted in revulsion. Janelle shook her head with icy defiance, and Meri quietly brushed away a tear from her cheek. The prosecutor attempted to interrupt. "Mr. Brown, please." But Kody silenced him with an angry sweep of his arm. "No, you don't tell me to stop. Nobody tells me to stop." He wheeled around to Robin, his voice softening for an instant. "Robin, speak. Tell them I did this for us. Tell them I'm not the villain." But Robin sat motionless, her lips shaking, unable to speak. Her silence echoed the loudest in the room, and that silence shattered Kody. With a guttural shout, he dropped his fist down onto the stand with such force that papers shot into the air. The bailiffs reacted, moving in, but Kody was already in motion, bursting down from the stand like an unleashed bull. The first officer went for him, but Kody pushed him so hard that the man went crashing into the benches, sending a reporter's camera flying. Another officer went for him, but Kody wriggled free with renewed strength, his fists flying. "Get off me," he roared. "You can't trap me. I am the master of this family." The room was in chaos. Reporters backed away, holding onto cameras. Fans screamed and covered their heads. Christine had automatically grabbed Janelle's hand, both of them covering themselves as officers tussled with the man they used to call husband. The judge's gavel crashed in vain. Order, but it was futile. Kody's anger was explosive. He punched one officer in the face, sending him tumbling. Another attempted to pin his arms behind him, but Kody yanked his elbow back, hitting the man in the ribcage. The noise of the struggle, shouts, grunts, furniture crashing, rang out in the courtroom, like a battlefield. "Stop resisting," a bailiff yelled, but Kody wouldn't quit. His voice cracked with rage and insanity. "You think you can bring me down? I am the family. Without me, you're nothing." His declarations were not defiance. They were admissions. Each shriek betrayed the truth he had so desperately sought to hide. His love of control, his need to grasp power, his terror of being left behind. The officers charged again, this time with backing. 4 men clamped his arms and shoulders, their muscles straining to keep him pinned. Kody wrestled like a berserk animal, his legs kicking against the shining wood floor, his face flushing with effort. "Let me go," he bellowed, his voice raw. "This is all a lie. They deceived me. They deceived me." Cameras snapped crazily, capturing every moment of his destruction. Across the room, Christine breathed, almost inaudibly. "No, Kody, you betrayed us." Then Kody's gaze met hers. Something raw burst in his face. Anger, pain, and terror, all knotted together. He surged forward once more, almost freeing himself, his hand reaching out toward her, as if to shut her up forever. But before he could reach him, one of the officers hooked his arm around Kody's neck, pulling him back. A second officer pinned the wrists behind his back, the clasp of the handcuffs echoing like the last nail in a coffin. Still, Kody wouldn't stop. His body convulsed with rage, his voice breaking as he screamed,
"You can't do this!"
"I'm Kody Brown. I'm the leader of this family. This court has no power over me." The judge's voice cut through, icy and commanding. "This court has every power over you, Mr. Brown. Enough." The officers forced Kody to his knees, his body slamming against the floor. The fight drained from him, but his voice carried on in broken shouts, echoing off the courtroom walls. "You'll regret this, all of you. Without me, you're lost. Lost." Robin wept softly in the corner, covering her eyes. Christine, Janelle, and Meri sat transfixed, observing the man they once shared their lives with literally disintegrate on national television. And lastly, his wrists bound, and his frame immobilized. Kody's cries started to subside. His chest pumped furiously, perspiration running down his face. His golden ringlets sat mussed and tousled. His previously authoritative presence, now a defeated, broken man lying bound on the courtroom floor. The judge hunched forward, his tone stern. "If the record reflect that the defendant has assaulted officers in this court, he will be charged separately for resisting arrest and assault." The gavel hit once more, firm and inexorable. The courtroom descended into oppressive silence. The riot was ended, but the harm was already accomplished. Each person in that room recognized they had seen the downfall of Kody Brown, not as a husband, not as a father, but as a man who had surrendered to his pride, greed, and anger so that there was left only an image of strength and rage. And as the officers pulled him away, still grumbling under his breath, the world was aware. The Brown family empire was finally over. The echo of the gavel still hung in the air like a specter. The tumult was over, but the courtroom was empty, oppressive as though every wall had soaked up the violence that had just exploded. Kody Brown was nowhere to be seen, pulled from the courtroom by officers, his screams ringing down the corridors until they gradually grew distant. For a moment, nobody stirred. Reporters just sat there, frozen, pen held poised over paper. Cameras flashed in stunned tempo, freezing in time faces of sorrow, relief, and unbelief. Christine breathed first. She sat back in her chair, shaking hands, planting them against her chest. She gazed at Janelle, who nodded barely a fraction of an inch, half reassurance, half depleted energy. Meri sat rigid, eyes brimming with moisture, lips pursed as though she was a container bursting with words she never had spoken. And Robin sat by herself, her face planted in her hands. She had held on to Kody until the last moment. But now, even she seemed shattered. Her world split in two. The judge stood tall, his robe heavy, his deep final voice. This court has seen enough to know the truth. The fraud, betrayal, and conspiracy charges will proceed. More charges of attacking officers are now added. Mr. Kody Brown will stay in custody without bail. There was a gasp in the room. It was official. The man who had stood so tall as the hub of a polygamous empire was now a prisoner, waiting for judgment. The judge stopped, his gaze sweeping the women who used to call Kody husband. To those who have been harmed by Mr. Brown's actions, this court recognizes your hurt. Justice will still be served. Another slam of the gavel. Court adjourned. And like that, it was done. The silence after the storm. The courtroom emptied slowly, people whispering as they shuffled out. Reporters rushed toward the doors to broadcast the story to the world. Kody Brown arrested. Headlines were already forming. Christine stood first, her legs shaky, but her resolve solid. She looked at her fellow sister wives. "We're free," she whispered, almost in disbelief. Janelle gave a shaky laugh, though it was laced with tears. "Free, but scarred." Meri pushed a hair from her wet face. "He'll never bother us again. Not the way he used to." Her voice broke, but there was resolve in it too, a resolve born of survival. Robin finally sat up, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her lips shaking. "You don't get it, he did all this because he loved us. He was defending what we created." Christine's eyes grew hard. "No, Robin, he did it because he loved only himself. We were pawns in his game." Robin violently shook her head, her tears spilling. "That's not true. He loved me." Her voice echoed too loud, too desperate, as if she was more trying to convince herself than anyone else. The other wives gazed at her with compassion, not resentment. They understood her hurt. They had experienced it. And now, Robin was alone in it, at last. The cameras outside. When the women emerged from the courthouse, a hurricane of microphones, flashes, and yells confronted them. Reporters pushed forward, eager for every sentence. "Christine, how do you feel now that Kody has been arrested? Janelle, did you know about the financial fraud? Meri, what's next for you? Robin, do you still support your husband?" The women braced themselves at the onslaught. They had been reality television celebrities for years, their lives picked apart for viewing pleasure. But this was different. This was real, nasty truth under public scrutiny. Christine raised a hand, her voice steady despite the chaos. Today wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And the truth is, Kody Brown betrayed us. He betrayed the family. And now, he faces the consequences. The crowd erupted in shouts and scribbles. Janelle added firmly, "We're not victims anymore. We're survivors." Meri, who was otherwise quiet, uttered words that pierced the din. "For years we constructed him as the leader. But leaders protect. Leaders don't destroy." Today, that myth is shattered. Robin followed behind them, protected by a court officer, as the queries hurled at her became bitter. "Robin, do you regret standing by him? Robin, were you involved? Robin, do you think he'll ever change?" She did not say a word. Tears only spoke on her behalf. The private moment several hours later. Out of sight of the cameras, the three ex-wives huddled in a small quiet room, waiting for last-minute paperwork. For the first time in years, there was no Kody to interject. No yelling, no gamesmanship, just quiet, and each other. Christine shattered the silence. "You know what? For the first time, I don't feel scared." Janelle smiled weakly. "For the first time, I can breathe." Meri gazed at them both, her voice gentle but certain. "For the first time, I feel free." They exchanged a long, silent glance, not merely as women who weathered the same storm, but as women who had finally emerged from it. Robin waited by herself in another room for her own detective interview. She held her wedding ring firmly, rocking back and forth. Deep down in her heart, she still couldn't release Kody, but a cold, hard reality whispered through her mind. The man she loved was dead. The final image that evening. The news sounded loud on every channel. Video of Kody's courtroom battle was aired repeatedly. his crazed eyes, his bellowing, the handcuffs clicking onto his wrists. The headlines shrieked, "Sister Wives Patriarch Crashes, Kody Brown Arrested." Social media went wild. Some were surprised. Others claimed to have foreseen it. Enthusiasts of the show cried for the wives, and critics reviled Kody's ego. The world had always referred to them as a family. But now, they were no longer a family. And alone in their individual homes, Christine, Janelle, and Meri peered into the future with broken hope. Chains of Kody's domination had finally been shattered. Kody, on the other hand, sat by himself in a chilly jail cell, his limp curls, his dark eyes. He mumbled to himself in the darkness, reliving the day, trying to convince himself he was the victim. But no one was listening anymore. The control, fear, and lies empire he had built collapsed. The Brown family tale was not ending. It was starting anew, but without him.